All right, my name is Ali Khataw, and I've been in Austin for 42 years. I was involved in the Asian Chamber. I've been involved in the Austin Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the CEO of Encotech Engineering Consultants, and we design buildings and public infrastructure. That's interesting you asked that because the Asian community was growing really fast at a fast rate, very fast rate. If I remember correctly, in 2000, the Asian population in Austin was about 4.6%. In 2010, in a decade, it grew to 6.3%, which basically it was a clear guidance to do something. The Asian community was becoming very prominent. And that growth, it was eminent to do something in the chamber. There was this chatter that wouldn't it be nice to have one strong chamber? And unification was imminent. It was a matter of time. So at that time, there were two Asian chambers, right? So Austin Asian American Chamber of Commerce, GAACC, and Texas Asian Chamber of Commerce, TACC. I was the chair of the board for GAACC, and Jim Yatsu, a great friend of mine, a wonderful gentleman, was the chairman of the board for TACC. So before I get into your question about risk, I would like to tell you why we were thinking why there should be some sort of a unification. So it was something that I thought the population was rising. It was something that we needed to do. So one day, I had never met Jim Yatsu. One day I called him up and said, Jim, let's do lunch. And he said, absolutely. So we went for lunch and I pitched him the idea, what if we were one organization? And Jim said, you know, Ali, if you would not have contacted me, I would have called you for lunch and asked the same question. So there was this spark that both our intentions were the same, to create an Asian chamber that was one identity in Austin, that was one voice for the business community, one voice for the political community, one voice for civic community. You know, there were eminent risks, no doubt about that. One was relational risks, one were risks on reputation, and there were political risks also in case the merger would backfire. It's very interesting. It makes me think of 2009. The merger happened in 2012. And 2009 was the time where the seeds of communication that the merger should happen were being planted. I remember I did Leadership Austin Essential class in 2009. Two of the core values that were very, very important to me were basically community trusteeship and collaborative decision-making. So I used those leadership skills that I learned there as tools to get into the direction where we could build consensus and we could talk to people and we could get the community together. Something that Jim Yatsu and I both agreed, and there was a strong buy-in from him. Now we had to make the idea sell to the board members of both organizations, and that was the next step. The challenges were to have a buy-in from the community because both chambers existed on their own. They did galas on their own, they did events on their own, and most of the membership that belonged, there was no cross-pollination between the two chambers. So that was the challenge. So how would you go about doing that? But before even doing that, you have to have buy-in from the board members of both organizations. So Jim and I put our heads together and we created a committee and we called it the New Generation Committee. It had thought leaders that were more viable to move in the direction of making sense for the organization, right? The New Generation Committee had 5 members from TACC and then 5 members from AAACC. We courted each other by doing social events in the evening. Once we were comfortable with the social events, we actually started doing joint events. But it was branded under AAACC and TACC branding. And then, of course, in 2012, we decided that we love each other. And why should there be two organizations? This is the time to move forward. And the actual merger was recognized by City of Austin in a proclamation. Mayor Lee Leffingwell was the presiding mayor at that time. And we were all at City Hall. And we were sitting, there were audience, and then I and Jim Yatsu were standing at the stage there with Mayor, and Mayor had the proclamation in his hand. And the mayor leans over and tells me, Ali, do you think you're doing the right thing? And I said, Mayor, I can assure you, I am fully confident that this will be the right move. But, and then he put his hand on my shoulder and he patted me. That great. And then now when I meet him and all that, he's pretty happy with what happened. So the new generation committee that we created by doing events together and by doing socials together, there was communication and there was the friendship started to develop. This happened over a few years. This is not a merger that happened just, if I remember right, it took us from 2009 all the way to 2012 to create the merger. But we also did something that would bring more value to collaborate people, is that we hired an external consultant as a mediator. And so we had a couple of meetings with the full board of both organizations. And the mediator was leading the conversation in terms of showing and asking questions that were hard questions. How will you guys work together? How will the finances work? And what are our revenue generation? What are the programming needs? And we did all that. And I think we came out pretty ahead on those conversations with the mediator. He was really good. When the merger happened, both organizations had sponsors for their events, and they had their political policy viewpoints. The nonprofit side, that organizations that funded us were very happy, because now they didn't have to work and figure out which chamber to give the money to. It would be one organization that would be receiving the funds. So that was great. Politically, it was fantastic, because when there would be any issue that dealt with Asian business policies and so on, we had one combined voice, which was very important, having that one voice. And the civic side, the community engagement, there would be one chamber. The media loved it because now they didn't have to figure out which chamber was it and which chamber did we photograph or things like that. It was really, things were falling in place, and I just wished we would have done this years earlier. But anyway, we did it, and it is successful. You know, fragmentation actually is not a bad thing, but the problem is we are all in our silos. And that is the main concern, where civic leadership breaks apart, political leadership breaks apart. I would tell the leaders that listen privately and negotiate publicly. So you have the viewpoint of the people that are not at the negotiating table, but you have them in your mind. The other thing is, I would say also, in all conversations in these political times, and it applies right now, is dignity and respect are pinnacle items that one has to put in front before even negotiating or talking about collaboration. It's an interesting question, and sometimes I ponder how the next generation or how the chamber will grow in a community that is growing very fast. What my heart and my heartfelt opinion is, I would not like to see chambers break up into silos and create separate chambers. We as Asians, we represent a lot of countries, and it's very easy for people to instigate breakups. and create their own chambers. But one unified voice is very strong than all broken up. And to the young generation, I would say, come to the table with collaboration in your mind, respect each other, respect each other's dignity, because that is the only way we will move the needle. And of course, excel in whatever you do, because people who excel just stand out. I am proud to have served in Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce originally, and now GAACC. I am on the advisory board, which is an honor. I see amazing leadership right now, both at the executive level of the chamber and also at the staff level. And I think we are moving in a direction which will put us, which will be actually a cherry on top for Austin. When I started my firm in 1990, it was out of my house. It was very difficult to get projects, and I worked for $7.50 an hour doing CAD work for architects. And slowly, people realized that I was a licensed professional engineer, and they started giving me more work that was more engineering, and I started charging them more. And there were times where my wife and I used to have eggs for dinner because we couldn't afford other proteins. And I was about to give up and said to my wife that I'm going to just go get a job because this is not moving in the right direction. To have a supportive spouse that supports you was a very major thing for me. My wife, Nahid, told me there is no way you would enjoy working for anybody. I know your personality. You are an entrepreneur. You are somebody who would like to be your own boss. So I would say persistence. I would say persistence to the young generation. That is where you need to navigate towards and not give up. Because times might be, times go up and down. There are good times, there are bad times. But hope and persistence are the two. If you take a flag of persistence and hope around your shoulder and stand with it, you'll succeed, I can assure you. The way I would use that organization is obviously for networking. So there were multiple things. I would respect the political voice that the board members and the community makes, and the decisions in the community push forward because of those discussions within the board and so on towards public policy. But I would really concentrate on networking. A lot of people come to me and they tell me that I became a member of GAACC or I became a member of the Austin Chamber of Commerce. I'm not getting anything out of it. And my question to them is, yes, they have a few events a year and you attend those events and there's networking there. That is great. But don't forget, all these boards have committees. And to be a member of a committee, it doesn't require you to be on the board. And that's where really the sparks happen. You meet other people and you are in a surrounding where decision is being made with your voice. So I think that is incredible to get engaged in committees before you are board material. I mean, you have to climb the ladder and you have to prove to the board that you are worth putting on the board and you are a good decision maker that would add value to the board decisions. Membership at the chamber level, at the lowest level in Austin Chamber or Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce, Greater Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce, is a very low bar, right? I mean, it's not that high. Plus, there are events that are done where you could have friends that are members and they can bring you to those events, networking events. And one of the things is I coach this to my own staff. I love leading business development in my own business as a CEO. And I tell them, you don't force down somebody, you don't meet somebody at an event and say, by the way, here's my card. Of course, give your card to people, but I sell pencils. Can I have your order, please? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You have to come to the table with an angle. So I'll give you an example for a banker, okay? If you're a banker and you are in the banking business and you're at a networking session for the Asian Chamber of Great Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce, instead of saying, can I have your account? Do you need a loan right now? tell them what is attractive that your bank is doing that other banks are not doing that would lure them to pay attention to you. Like, hey, by the way, I have CDs right now which have 4% return. All the other people are doing 3.75. Would you be interested for me to send you some information on that? Now, the chances, if you put a question that way, a person is not going to say no, because everybody wants to make money. Money talks. So that's what I would say. Get engaged, be involved in committees, be involved in networking sessions, and show the value of people to the people. I think the opportunities are incredible, especially now. We are in an age of a tech boom, and tech boom already happened. We're in the AI age. Use artificial intelligence to get information before you're going to a meeting or so, to bring value. To give you an example, that if you are attending a seminar or you are attending a course, if you do go to ChatGPT or Claude or any of the others, basically ask a question that I'm going to this event, what are the questions that I should be asking or educate me on the topic so I know a little bit beforehand. And now when you talk to people there, you're talking intelligently, right? So that's one thing. Use AI as much as you can in a positive way, right? Positive way. The other benefits nowadays are that we are in a area in the country that is literally booming. Austin might have slowed down a little bit on the growth right now in this year in 2005, 2006, but Central Texas is booming. So we are all Central Texas. We are a region. And so to be here as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a venture capitalist and venture funding is all available in this region. We have an ecosystem that is working. And I think tapping into that ecosystem is great. And we're very lucky to be in Austin in this time. That's an interesting question about photography. I've been running my company as a CEO for 35 years. And I'm at a point where I have great leadership and I can actually concentrate more on my passion, which is photography. I just love photography. When I was 16 years old, my dad bought me a camera. It was a Russian Zenit camera, SLR film camera. Slowly, I developed some skills using film. And then when I was at University of Arkansas, I worked for the newspaper there, Arkansas Traveler. A lot of my photographs appeared on the front cover of the newspaper. I loved photojournalism. I still do. I love travel photography. I love street photography and wildlife photography. What I did recently is about 10 years ago, I developed a relationship with the safari company. I had an exhibition at AARC, Austin Asian Resource Center, and it was called Faces of Humanity. So this one gentleman, his name is Saurabh Khatrapal. He is the CEO of Fairtrade Safaris. He came up to me. He was in that exhibition, and he attended that. And he came up to me and said, Ali, how serious are you about wildlife photography? And I said, I love it. And he said, okay, let's have lunch. So we had lunch, and we created a partnership where we are both leading. I use his safari company, and he makes all the bookings and all the pricing and all that. And I teach photography, and my wife does the logistics. So we have a great team, and we take people to Tanzania and Kenya and teach them photography on location. But that is with Fairtrade Safaris, and that has expanded to me doing some stuff on my own, where I'm leading now safaris, and not safaris, but actually I'm leading street photography and travel photography in Pakistan and Morocco, and soon to start in Indonesia. People ask me, has photography helped you in acquiring business and revenue? The answer is not directly, but it is a fantastic icebreaker. So what I do is I do something that is very creative. After I meet somebody for business through my firm, Encotech Engineering, we have a good conversation, or we have a lunch and potential to do some business. I come back to the office, and I have my photographs 5x7 printed on cards. And I write a nice little note to them, thank you for meeting me, and thank you for this conversation that we had. And if there is any action items to be done, I write it in that. And I thank them, and I mail it to them. I sign it, and at the back of the card, there are lines and it says original print. So I meet so many people that I'm doing business with that say that, Ali, your photograph of that lion or your photograph of that leopard is on my credenza for the last 6 years. It does help in breaking the ice. So when I have the camera in my hand, it's so funny that if I have an iPhone, I'll take snapshots, just random. I won't sit down, compose it, look at the lighting. I'll just take memory shots. And they're great for my grandchildren and, family events, birthdays and all that. But when I have a real camera in my hand, it is a switch, and it switches me to get my creative juices going. I love doing stories. I love photographing people, getting into their skin and trying to understand their lifestyle. I recently went to Peru, and I wanted to photograph the local culture at Lake Titicaca. So we went to the island on a boat, and I actually stayed in a mud hut with a couple for 2 days. And I photographed them, and I photographed the activities they did. They have this farm where they raise hamsters, guinea pigs actually, to be precise. Getting those kind of stories. I recently did a story on the transgender people of Pakistan. And this was right after COVID. We were still wearing masks and moving around in the street. I was in Pakistan. I went to this area where the transgender people take refuge because it is a very interesting concept. They have been in the community, they are harassed and they're not treated fairly. But at the same time, Pakistan has recognized them as a third gender in legal documents. So there's this dichotomy, but people are now understanding respect for people who are different from you. And I think writing a story on that was something that I was very passionate because I wanted to educate the world how progressive Pakistan was to create a identity on identity card and so on, have male, female, and transgender, which even the European countries and even us in the United States have not been able to cross that boundary. So that was very interesting. And LFI magazine, which is a Leica magazine, I love Leica cameras, published the story. And so it has been, it was good. And so my heart, as I grow older, my passion is moving in the direction of wildlife conservation, doing stories on conservation, doing stories on actually life of people, empathy. If I can move the needle in any shape or form in bringing justice, in bringing the truth forward, bringing humanity forward, I feel like I have done something in life.